Okay, so looking at our standard deviation formulas, I get straight away they do look quite complicated, but let's just go through and see if we can understand them. So first of all, just as a heads up, we use standard deviation. I've just labelled it 1 as our first formula, as our mean. So what this means is if the question asks you to calculate the mean, it's better to do this version because it'll just save you time and it'll just be quicker. But if the question doesn't ask you to calculate the mean, then it's better to use this one. And I get they both look quite complicated, and this one looks maybe even perhaps more complicated. It is actually better and easier than you might think. So first of all, just going through the symbols. This is we call the sum of. This symbol just means the sum of. So for example, here this means the sum of x squared. So we'd square, so we'd square each value and then add them all together. And then here we would add all the values, then square them. Next, x is just represents each individual value. X, this is pronounced x bar. It has a dash on the top of it. So x bar just means the mean, and then n is the total number of values. So for using this formula, we would first of all find x bar. Then we would set out a table, and I'll show you this in our examples, to find the sum of x minus x bar squared. We would then use our formula, and then the reason I've got statement in brackets is sometimes a question will ask you to make a statement. Not always, but sometimes, and you need to be prepared to do that. And I'll show you how to do that when it comes to it. And then for our second formula, we can see the sum of x squared just means square each value and then add them. And then here we have the sum of x and then all of that squared, which means add all the values, then square them. And then we have n here and n minus 1 on the bottom. To solve this one, we're going to set out our table for the sum of, to find the sum of x and then the sum of x squared. We'll then use our formula and then make a statement if necessary. Now, I get this is a lot to take in and a lot to absorb, but trust me guys, when you actually start looking at the examples and you can compare it and look back at these steps, it will make a lot more sense. These questions can be quite lengthy though, so just make sure to concentrate and make sure you really are understanding this. Anyway, take a note of this down because I'm going to move on to our first example, and you're going to want to kind of go through the steps at first and so you understand it. Anyway, let's take a look at our first example.